room and those online. This is our 6-monthly report on council-funded agencies, and sitting at the end of the room now we've got Sport Canterbury, and we've got Jason, Alison, Anna. If you'd just like to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for having us. It seems like time has flown since we were last here. I'm Jason Merritt. I'm the General Manager at Sport Canterbury.
Kia ora team, I'm Anna Holland and I am the Healthy Active Learning Facilitator here in the Mid-Canterbury region.
Kia ora, my name is Alice. I'm the Community Advisor for the Mid-Canterbury region.
Thank you, everybody. Do you have anything to add to your report or anything you'd like to discuss in more detail than what's written?
Yeah, we do. So I think we've taken the report as read, obviously, but we were just keen to highlight and provide a little bit of detail around some of the points that were in the report that we feel are really exciting and significant opportunities in Ashburton at the moment. And that's what we're just keen to run through with a bit of a presentation at the moment.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
So very briefly, just refreshing your memory from 6 months ago, Sport Canterbury's vision is more people, more active, more often. So generating physical activity throughout the region. What that physical activity is, it doesn't matter as long as people are being active. So everything we do is about getting people active and engaged in sport, active recreation, play and physical activity, with the ultimate goal of enhancing the wellbeing of our communities. With a specific strategic focus on some priority populations who face the greatest barriers to physical activity, so Māori and Pacifica, women and girls, people with disabilities and highly deprived communities, with an overarching focus on tamariki, rangatahi and active adults. So our contract outcomes with Ashburton District Council have 3 areas, so it's leading, enabling and providing. We're just going to run through some examples for each of those 3 areas of what we've achieved over the last 6 months. And in the leading space, this is what our contract is stating that we will provide for the Ashburton District. So advocacy, research and information, develop key relationships, ensure spaces and places are meeting the needs of the community and celebrating success. So we're just going to highlight 3 or 4 examples from the leading space initially to show you some of the work that will be done. So we're partnering with Squash New Zealand to review the provision of squash facilities in Mid-Canterbury, and this is a conversation around, have we got too many, have we got not enough, what's the quality of the facilities in Mid-Canterbury, and that's an example of the type of work we've been doing across the region, across a number of different sports, whether it's sports fields or squash facilities in this example. In partnership with you, we endorsed Rakaia Rugby Club's application to Lotteries New Zealand around their club rooms and changing areas, and that saw them gain $350,000 towards that facility, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yep, we also sit on a lot of advisory groups around Mid-Canterbury, so Safe Mid-Canterbury, the Welcoming Community, EANC User Group, Skills Park Steering Group, Immigration Network, and any other groups that we can speak to where we can shine a light on sport, active rec and play. We also hold Sector Connects throughout the year, one termly, that brings sports organisations together in a room where they can discuss and talk about any issues they're currently having. We can provide things around Balance is Better, a lot of different information that is relevant to them as sports organisations.
And we have our Sports Awards, the Mid-Canterbury Sports Awards, scheduled in for May again this year, which you'll receive invitations to as well, and hopefully we see you there. But that's a great event that we never struggle to get buy-in from the Mid-Canterbury community. It's amazing, and it's a great celebration for Mid-Canterbury. So the second area of our contract with ADC is around enabling, and really that's supporting the capability and capacity of individuals and organisations throughout the region, and some of the work we've done in this space here.
Yep, so we're doing health checks at the moment. They have come from post-COVID. It's an opportunity for organisations in the community to be able to go through what we're calling a health check. Basically, we do a deep dive into the workings of their organisation. We pull out any improvements they can make, and where possible, we can support them in anything that sort of needs that support moving forward, and advise them on any changes they can make to work better as an organisation.
Thank you. Do you mind if we take questions throughout your presentation?
Go for it.
I think Councillor Brown has a question, please.
Yes, thank you. Just going back to the partnership with Squash New Zealand, and you do a review. Can't they do themselves? Well, I've got a feeling like they're overlapping all the time, or
Yeah.
do I miss something? Or
Yeah, so national sports organisations vary greatly in terms of their capability and capacity to do this work. So you compare it to a New Zealand Rugby, which has hundreds of employees and can really be involved in the communities. Squash New Zealand has 5 employees, and their ability to do this in-depth work in the communities, they just can't. They don't have the capability or the capacity. We get funded through you to support the Spaces and Places space, so they reach out to us to really drive and lead and support this work for them in the community, because we have capacity and capability to lead this stuff, or we might have financial resource to contract out a feasibility study or something like that they just can't do. So that's our role in it. And it's the same with a lot of the work we do. NSOs in an ideal world would provide coach development as an example, but some of them just have no people or resource to be able to do that, and that's where we come in to fill those gaps.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the Mayor has a question for you,
Yeah,
please.
along the same lines of the Squash Review, their 2022 strategy is 2022, and just reviewing it now, is that timely?
Again, probably a similar reason for it. So Squash New Zealand had some significant challenges internally. They've essentially cleaned out the board, got a whole new staff and a new CEO on, and all of their work stopped for that time period. And now they've got some consistency in place. I think they're back to reviewing or getting back to business as usual with that. And just worth noting, we're certainly engaging with Richard and co around that stuff as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Hooper?
Thank you. The deep dive into the health checks, how sort of deep is that? Are you actually blood pressure checking staff, and is it that deep, or is it more about activeness?
No, it's not about the work that they do. So it's not about the sport or the activity, it's about the organisation. So there's 7 or 8 areas we deep dive into: HR, governance, finance, funding, and 3 or 4 more areas like that. And we have them do a self-review, and we try and get everyone in the organisation to do that, so we're not just getting one person's opinion on the organisation. And then we sit down and work through that with them and develop an action plan to improve the areas that have been identified as areas of need. But we ask for evidence and proof of these things too, so we're not just taking their words for it. So staff wellbeing and engagement, certainly one thing, but some of the key trends we're really seeing is governance and lack of maybe not capability, but we've got a lot of really well-meaning volunteers around these boards who just don't have time or expertise in that space. So how do we support the governance of an organisation to ensure they're meeting their requirements? So it's anything and everything, and we go as deep as we can. Again, being largely volunteer-driven organisations, we sometimes it's hard getting some of that information as well, and it takes us a while to really get in it and understand that too.
We have 2 more questions, please. Can I just ask a quick question? Do you charge for these health checks?
No. And then when I say we provide support, it's generally not us because of capacity reasons. So we would engage a consultant or an expert in whatever field it is to provide that. So examples would be we pay a professional chair to sit on a board for a year to upskill the rest of the board to make it happen. And that's not us, but we will pay for that and resource that. Or they might need some legal support to undertake a restructure because it's not working. We'll pay for that legal support for them.
So you would pay for a finance person to go and look at their books, and then you would pay for a
Yep.
health and safety person to go and check their standard
Yeah,
operations?
definitely. Yeah. And we've also developed a whole suite of resources like policies that we can give and they can tailor to their organisation as well.
Thank you. We've got 2 more questions then, or 3 more questions, and then we'll carry on with the presentation because we've only got limited time. Lynette, you'd like to say something?
Just
please?
talking about health checks and things, do you work with the horse fraternity at all, like the pony clubs and that? 'Cause I know there's big issues and grounds and things in that space. Do you get involved with them, with the riders and things there, or that's out of your scope?
We don't at this stage. We do a lot of work in the Te Manawa application space with funding things like learning to ride and activations that enable those with disabilities to ride. But as far as health checks for those sort of organisations, that has not been done. It's as far as yet.
but it's not out of our scope, is within scope.
Thanks. Thank you. Liz? You-
Thanks. Yeah, just a quick question on the sideline behaviour. I know Jan Cochrane was hot on this and would sort of head along to a lot of games. Are you finding that it's improving? And I know she concentrated on rugby for a while, but are you looking at all sports with that behaviour?
Yes, we definitely look at all sports. As far as improving, I think, of course, we have put a lot of work into it, and organisations themselves have put a lot of work into it, and it's something that's constantly a conversation to ensure that that improving is still continuing.
Thank you. And Russell, you have a question.
Yep, thank you. With your health checks around Mid-Canterbury, there's a lot of smaller organisations, I suppose, that is very much volunteer based. It's a committee, not a board, and they've got to try and find time to meet. But a lot of them are struggling with membership, especially attracting new members, and the numbers seem to be dropping in a lot of sporting things. How do those smaller groups get this help? Because I don't think a deep dive into them is sort of what's warranted. It's more along almost a coaching role and an advisory role. Is that service available as well?
Yeah, so we have a couple of leadership programs as one avenue to support that. So a governance leadership program and a sector staff leadership program, and through that they get a mentor and they receive collective workshops and they get a cohort that they can lean on as well. But also one of the things we've done in Christchurch, and will be a conversation in Mid-Canterbury as well, is around some shared services. So those organisations might need 10 hours a week of an admin support or 10 hours a week of finance support, and they can't warrant or justify employing that. And I think there is a conversation around how do we collectively make sure that capacity is there to support these needs across the sector rather than for each individual organisation.
Thank you. Please carry on with your presentation.
Alrighty, so one way that I help develop a support confidence capability in my role is working in schools and running PD sessions. So saying that we've ran 5 professional learning development sessions in the last 6 months, so they can be, the 5 that I've done has been some ata and oho PD around a social and emotional resource, Te Reo Māori games, modelling physical activity lessons in the school, so being in a school and having half an hour with each class, so going around and modelling what a quality PE lesson looks like, and then going back in a week later and running another session, and then going in and observing and supporting staff that want more upskilling in that space, and then looking at full staff PD as well around resources or quality sessions, helping with health consultations or anything that school is requiring.
Yeah, we also do playground mapping, play activation, so that's within our Healthy Active Learning schools, so 10 Healthy Active Learning schools in the Ashburton region. We will go in, playground map the space, so do a full report for the principals or the schools to look over that highlights activations that could be made, suggestions, recommendations moving forward to make sure that play and physical activity is at the core of being available for these kids. And then we also support our COSARS events that are one each term. So all of our small and rural schools in the area get their Year 8 students together for the purpose of connection, and that's through that physical activity lens.
And then the last area of our contract is around providing, and this is really providing or supporting opportunities to be physically active, and this is working with providers and community organisations to deliver. It's supporting any initiatives that increase physical activity and through funding. And these are some of the examples here.
So this year we have a new sports coordinator that's just come on board, and she is working in 6 of our Healthy Active Learning schools. So every Monday she might be in Hampstead, every Tuesday in Ellington, so every day is allocated the same day to each school. So Alice and I are both supporting Claudia in this role. So we're going in and taking observations, just sitting in alongside her. If she wants us to team teach with her, we're happy to do that. So she's only about 3 weeks into the role,
and she's doing a great job. We have set up a review process for her, so that is in every school now, and I think they are going to do 2 reviews this term on her, and then it's going to be every termly, just to keep up again that quality lessons within those schools.
And for the last few years, we have worked with Lion Foundation and Ashburton District Council and Richard and the team to source funding from Lion for you to essentially deliver your Learn to Swim lessons at EA Network Centre, which has been great, and we've got another application in with them now for you to continue that. Over the last sort of 6 months, there's been $65,000 worth of Tū Manawa funding come into the district, which is funding that actively contributes to providing physical activity or sport opportunities for your region. And an example of that, Alice, is
the pop-ups for the YMCAs. The YMCA provide pop-ups of activations, which they've put their dates out to be in 2 different schools over the next 6 weeks. And it's providing that opportunity for those potentially who wouldn't normally have it to be physically active, to play, to move.
Thank you. I'll just interrupt you. I think Councillor Brown has a question.
Oh, him again. Just on page 5 of what I've got here, you've got, through the Strength and Balance initiative, you've got 6 new providers. Can you tell us who are they? How does it work?
I can't tell you who they are, sorry, but that detail I'm not across. But our role is to ensure that there are a number of spaces available throughout the week for older adults to participate in strength and balance classes, and part of that is accrediting new providers. So that's essentially going and providing an ACC accreditation to them to ensure their classes are meeting a quality criteria for those people to participate in. So they could be existing providers who are already delivering some things but needed a bit of support to get up to a certain level, or it might be establishing new providers completely. But I'm sorry, I can't tell you who they are, but I'm happy to find that out.
For example, EA Centre, I know they're working for hospice or becoming there as well. Is that part of it? Is it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who the providers
because I
are.
just don't know what it's nice to say there's a provider. Who and where?
Yeah, I'm happy to find out.
We do also have our Strength and Balance employee that's based in the Christchurch office that has come down in the last 6 months on 3 separate occasions to do Strength and Balance workshops in our local library. Pre-library. I'm sure she'd love to come to this space, and that was open, and that was a collaboration between Sport Canterbury and Safe Mid Canterbury, and we also had EA Network Centre involved in that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So to summarise, then, will you inform us of who they are?
Sure.
We'll just make a follow-up note of that in a minute. I'd like to just ask you a quick question. On the last point up here, you've got this project focuses on increasing participation rates in school attendance. Is that sport participation rates or participation rates in school?
Both. So ActiveAs is a new program that the team worked quite a lot with the developer program last year, and it's a significant amount of funding for one school over 3 years. But the purpose was using physical activity, whatever it wanted to be, and this was teased out with the students. So the students identified what they wanted to be. It could be sport, it could be yoga, it could be hiking, whatever they want, and the measure of success is around increase in physical activity but increased attendance and engagement rates within the school as well. So the school has metrics and measures on that already, and each year we'll track that to see if the physical activity intervention has actually increased attendance and engagement at the school.
Okay, so it's a measurement at the end of a period of a limited contract to see if it's an effective way of improving reducing
Exactly.
truant.
So it'll be measured every year, at the end of every year for 3 years to see how
That
it's
would be
trending.
interesting to see next year if you could, the next 6 months.
The ActiveAds initiative is all student-based, so it's all rangatahi boys. So the students come up with the concepts of how they want to be physically active, how they want to move, how they want to play, and then it's come from them as to that's what's going to get them to school.
And how many young people do you have involved in that at the college at the moment?
So they have a core group of,
Like
I think,
10, 50,
yeah, I think
100?
a small core group, but then they have done surveys throughout the school. So every pupil in the school had their time to put their advice and recommendations into what they would want.
Sure,
Yeah.
thank you. Tony, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the executive summary, you identify 5 groups of low levels of activity participation. So how do you motivate these people to get off their devices and get involved in sport without turning off the Wi-Fi, maybe.
Yeah, well, National's new rules around no cell phones will certainly help. But this is where a project like this, I think, gets it right, because the collective we, have been guilty of saying these are our opportunities, take it or leave it. But now we're saying, what do you want? And technology is could be part of the solution to engage some of those children too. But I think by asking those who aren't engaged currently what they want to do, and then actually providing that for them and removing every single barrier to it, if they're not going to participate, then they never will, right? So I think that's the purpose of particularly this project, is to see if this approach solves that problem that you're talking about, because you're right, it's everywhere.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Rob, you have a question too, please. Sorry, I didn't see your light.
No worries. Yeah, thank you. Mine was probably much pointed in the way Tony's question was. I've sort of noticed over the years, having kids involved with sport, with particularly rugby, when they're young, the clubs are strong, but when they get to sort of 14, 15, 16, they drop off significantly. What drive would there be in place to encourage that again? You probably have answered that now.
But I think half of our strategy and half of Sport New Zealand's strategy is completely targeted at reducing that drop-off in sport at that age, because it's, again, everywhere, that drop-off, and it's so organised for them, and it's completely done for them at a younger group, and it's easy, and then there's all these different technology and other enticing factors to draw them away from that. So what we're finding is people of that age, 14 or young teenagers, want to consume sport and physical activity differently. They don't necessarily want the 2 trainings a week and a game on a Saturday like we used to have. So it's about helping, one of our roles is helping sports adapt, because I think if they don't adapt, they'll die to that point. So what different methods and models of delivery are there out there to be able to attract and retain students or young people like that in sport that want it done differently? And we see clearly through all the research, they want modified games, they want less time, they don't want to have to commit, they want to be able to choose when they show up and play, and they want to do it with their mates, and they want less competitiveness in it. And there's still a place for the traditional model, don't completely, but again, if we don't adapt to cater to the changing needs, we're never going to bring those people back into activity. And a large part of our work around balance is better, and the coach development work we do is ensure we're thinking about those things and making sure we're catering to those different needs.
Thank you. Councillor Lovett, you have a quick question?
Yes, I have. Children that have been bullied at school in the playground, they kind of retreat and they'll sit inside on their own. Is there any programs for them to try and get them, to keep them active, or because some schools might have a core group of these kids, 2 or 3. Is there any work being done in this space?
When we do our playground mapping, that is something that does get brought up around the playground and who utilises it. And out of some of those playground mappings, we have seen that a lot of the girls have felt like they can't play basketball because it's overtaken by the boys. So through that, in the report was suggestions about time for girls only on the basketball court, or activating areas that potentially we're seeing students not doing anything or staying out of the way. And through that, we utilise that report to let them know what the school can be doing to help with that in the playground. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, it's something we also support in our Healthy Active Living schools as PALS, so they're physical activity leaders. So we run a PALS training day, and each school can nominate 12 students to come to this training day, and then they go back to school and they are the PALS for their school, so physical activity leaders, so they can run games and activities. It doesn't just have to be in break times. They might even, if it's generally senior students, they can help the junior classes, whether it's running a game, whether it's something to do at class time. It doesn't always have to be sports related, and it doesn't always have to be the sporty kids that take on this responsibility as well. But yeah, their job is predominantly to be out in break times and just to check on everyone and make sure everyone is included or everyone does have something to do at these break times and someone to play with.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. Tony, you have a question?
Thank you. I should have asked this one before, but under the strategy, your last sentence, we know that access to physical activity is not equitable, and that some communities across the region who face a range of different barriers. What sort of barriers do they face?
I think, well, geographical barriers are massive, particularly in a widespread region like Canterbury, I mean, you've got students in Waimate who have to travel pretty much every time they want to play or participate in anything, and it's about how we ensure we can make sure some of those barriers are removed for them. So obviously finances at the moment are a real barrier to that, and I guess the more aspirations you have in a certain sport, the further you've got to go if you live in a place like even Methven. Sorry, Waimate is a very bad example because it's not here. Methven, as an example, they're in Ashburton or Christchurch every second week at least, right? So how do we ensure we're removing those barriers? And things like Tū Manawa funding can help with that. There's the Rural Travel Fund as well. But it's also just access to the number of opportunities in a small community like that. You look at Christchurch or even Ashburton, there's just so much more on offer, where in Methven you might have your traditional sports and skiing, but there's not that opportunity to participate in lots of different things. So it's ensuring or supporting those geographically isolated regions to provide as many opportunities as they can as well.
Thank you. And Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. You do a lot of work in the schools and working with PE teachers and things, which is fantastic. Do you get any funding from Ministry of Education at all?
For that, we get some funding from Sport New Zealand for it, but they actually don't fund us. Funnily enough, they funded us to do that work in every other region in Canterbury, but not Ashburton, because they felt that this community wasn't deprived enough. So we've funded Anna's role. Sport Canterbury has funded Anna's role over and above that, because that just seems a bit ridiculous, and there's so many more even if that was correct around the deprivation, there's so many more challenges and barriers and concerns in schools these days that it's not solely based on deprivation.
Thank you. And just a supplementary question. I see here your funding request going forward, and it's got some inflation adjustment and things in it, which is, it's a little bit more than it is now. Is that just to maintain the service that's there, or to increase the level of service, or?
It'll be maintenance of service, and there's a couple of factors in that. So our core funding from Sport New Zealand is reducing a little bit, and the fact that status quo for us actually means going backwards. We give sort of 5% salary increases each year at Sport Canterbury, and overheads are increasing, and it's harder to gain funding. So it's just a reflection of the times for us at the moment.
And the Mayor, I think you have a... Oh, no, beg your pardon, Liz. I see you on...
Hamish.
Oh, Hamish.
Oh, thank you,
Everybody's got their lights.
Yeah,
thank you, Madam Chair. I recall from a former life that there was more research done into the teenage drop-off in sport than just about any other sporting issue. So it's a very thoroughly examined area. And I also recall that for team sports, the biggest single issue that kids want is to have fun. And there's a lot of work done in and around, a squad game. Then everyone had to have at least half a game, and the pressure that puts on success when the less able kids still have to have that half game. They come under real pressure from parents and coaches who have ambitions beyond the level of the particular competition. What's Sport Canterbury continuing to do with coaches and parents to accept that at kids' level the primary driver is to participate and enjoy it? That's what keeps kids in sport, not competitive success. How is Sport Canterbury working in that space?
Yeah, so through our sports sector connects, which we do termly, we work with the organisations at the top of their sport, and we really drive that balance as better, where we have these tough conversations, where we provide information on that idea around participation is what's going to keep kids, fun is what's going to keep kids involved, and then from there they can take that back to their own organisations to filter that through. We also have our coach developer within Sport Canterbury that comes to the region to work with coaches. That's a big part of that work line that he does around balance is better. And it's just mainly, we do a lot around education in that space.
We've engaged 3 people who hopefully are well known to the communities across Canterbury. So Greg Feek, Stacey Carr, and there's one more. And essentially we're bringing them around the regions to talk to parents, and we're not couching that as a come and listen to these people talk about how your kids shouldn't compete. It's going to the areas, all those environments where it is competitive already. There might be something happening that they're already there, and speaking to that audience then about you know, the value of balance is better and what you've spoken of. And if it comes from someone like a Greg Feek, we feel that's better bang for buck than us sharing that message. But also, if we just invite people to listen to that, we're going to get those who are already engaged and understand the message. So we're taking these people to the communities or to those environments where competition is prioritised over participation, I guess.
We also do that a lot with the healthy active learning as well. That's a lot of Anna's role, is working with those teachers to make it inclusive and to, I guess, re-educate around everyone being involved, around how we can involve those with disabilities, how everyone has equal rights to be involved and be active.
Thank you. We have 3 questions lined up here, and the next one is the Deputy Mayor, Liz McNamara.
Thank you. And not really a question, but a comment. I think some parents may benefit from going to those sessions as well. But I just wanted to say how much we've appreciated Alice's participation in the Bike Skills Steering Group. It's been really good to have her there and just sort of steer us on the right course when we sort of thought of flashing exciting things for our bike skills pass. So I just wanted to pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Mayor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Sport Canterbury, they get government funding. Is that increasing or decreasing? I think you touched on it before.
Decreasing slightly, yeah.
Just slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which department funds you?
Sport New Zealand?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're
A government department.
a government department.
They are a government department.
Yeah.
Okay.
We get Ministry of Health funding for healthy families or other health work like Strength and Balance as well. But the core funding comes from Sport New Zealand, definitely.
And that funding decrease, how does that affect the organisation?
Yeah, we're just working. We've only just had the initial conversation about it, so we know the overall picture of funding, but we still don't know the outcomes that we're working towards yet. We haven't had that conversation, so in the next 4 weeks we're having that conversation. So
Thanks.
Thank you. And Rob, you have a question, please?
Yeah, thank you. I was just heading back to my other question. Was there seems to be a huge buy-in with particularly rugby in boarding schools like Bede, St Kevin's, St Thomas's, etc. Have you looked at what they are doing differently to other schools? Why is there so much buy-in for that type of sport there and we can't achieve it in other schools?
yeah, good question. Not specifically, no. I think for the active as over recent years we haven't been as engaged with secondary schools as we would have liked. Through active as, at the Ashburton College example, we're increasing that reach, and we've also employed someone in the last wee while to work specifically into that secondary school space. So all of that is part of our intent over the next 4-year cycle, definitely, is to go deeper into secondary schools with that kind of approach, or find out why that sort of thing happens, I guess. Yeah, I just, sorry, Mayor Brown, I want to clarify, just so I'm not misrepresenting the situation around funding from government. We get core funding from Sport New Zealand, which has an inflationary adjustment, which is going up a little bit, but all the additional funding we get around it is being taken away because they're having to find the 7.5% cuts like all government entities. So our core funding is increasing slightly, but every sort of clip-on or additional bit of funding has going, which has led to a net effect of a slight decrease.
Thank you. A few years ago, we undertook down here the Play Active Recreation Sports Strategy, and we looked at optimal use of fields and centres, and we also looked at participation in various codes of sport. Is there any follow-up from that? Like, are we getting feedback on your work in that area, which is to improve, participation in playing and active recreational sport? Are we measuring how successful the intervention from you guys and from our changes and things, how that is influencing that?
Yes and no. So we get national level data that's tailored to regions. It's called Active As data, and Sport New Zealand measures the participation levels, or attempts to measure the participation levels across the country, but it's so flawed, and it's because it's an opt-in process, and the numbers that they have aren't anywhere near reflective of the sizes of communities, so it's hard to pin our results on that. So what am I saying? It's really challenging to actually measure the overall effect of an increase in participation.
That would be, we'll take that offline and discuss that later, but that would be useful to know.
Yeah, I completely
from
agree.
the investment perspective, how we're influencing the involvement. Yeah.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. There's one more question from Councillor Hooper.
Thank you.
Oh, true.
With all the work you're doing in the schools, is there some gaps appearing out of likes of Teachers College, or is the work you're doing in schools where there's, say, more experienced teachers that haven't been upskilled at Teachers College recently? Do you know what I mean?
Yep, I do know what you mean. So it just depends in every school, and I guess it's just a confidence thing as well. I do believe that all these teachers do have the capability to be teaching good quality health and PE.
Yeah.
It's more a confidence thing, I believe.
Is it still part of what they're learning at Teachers College?
Yeah, I
PE
believe so,
elements?
but a very, very little.
It's almost, if you're doing a primary degree, it's about 4 hours a year at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we have a question from Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. And either Tony or Hamish, have these amounts been put into our LTP, or are they new to us?
Tony, can you answer that at all? Is the amount requested in the LTP?
Yes, so we've got 67,600 in the LTP right now.
Okay, thank you.
And we would regard this presentation as a submission to the LTP in reality.
Yes, we would. So we'll discuss that and make the decision through the hearings process.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming in, and thank you for your presentation. It was very informative, and we'll look forward to the follow-up with regards to Lane's question, and we'll discuss your request in here for funding at the appropriate time in the LTP.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Who do we send the follow-up to? Sorry. Tony.
Fine.
Perfect. Yeah, lovely. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all
Thanks
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you. Before I invite we have next, I think, Braided Rivers Community Trust. Are they? Yep. Thank you. Please come up. But before you start, I neglected to put an apology in from Sarah Clifford, who is from the Mid Canterbury Citizens Advice Bureau. She won't be presenting today, and we'll try and find another time when she can, at her and our convenience. So I apologise for that. Come on up, team. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we've got here Roger, Jenny, and
George.
And Jim.
who I just played bridge with the other day, so I shouldn't have had the balls.
Not the new bridge.
Do you want to do an introduction, or you're okay, or do you want to talk?
Yes, I can introduce these people. As you know, the Theatre Trust has just gone through a few changes as far as trustees go. Both Noel Johnson and George Brown have stepped down, and positions have been taken up by Jenny Brady, who will look after financial aspects of the trust, and Jane Argyle, who has come on board. So two very good people there that agreed to come on the trust and assist with the operational side of it, and very welcomed. So yeah, I will speak a wee bit about the report. Jim will present the financials, and then George is going to cover off a wee bit of the changeover of the trust, and probably maybe speak a wee bit about where we're heading as far as the upgrade on the venue. So yeah.
Thanks.
So probably the most pleasing aspect of where we sit at the moment as far as the theatre goes is that continuing trend of increasing use from the last 6 month period. It has been very, like July through to December this year, last year was a very busy period, and yeah, it does follow on from the previous 6 months, which is very nice to see, sort of indicating that we have turned a corner, and you know, after COVID, it's sort of all coming back online. Most of the community events that we did start or miss out on during that COVID period have come back quite strongly, and there's certainly a lot of support from the community again for those events. Looking at where we stand at stood at the end of that 6 month period, there was 16,000 or just over 16,500 people through the venue or ticket purchases to events at the theatre, which is quite strong for that period. And it's, you know, looking at the percentages of events, we're sitting around 75% bums on seats, which again is quite nice to see. It's almost getting to the point now where some of the events that are selling out, it would be nice if we can encourage them to do 2 performances, but again, touring events, the tight schedules, they can't fit that in. So yeah, it's very nice to see. The promoters love it when they can sell out an event, so it's good for the community and you know, good for the bank balance. There are a couple of shows where, well, there's a couple of promoters where we are missing out on performances because of our size. One of them, Brent Eccles, who you may have heard of, he does a lot of the huge international acts. I've been in talks with him recently. They're touring Dragon and Hello Sailor, and it's taken quite a bit of conversation with him to convince him to come to Ashburton, but we've finally gotten to sign on the dotted line. But that'll be the first time he's been through the venue as a promoter. So that's quite exciting to see. He has just announced another one that he's touring. Another big New Zealand act, I can't think of who it was, but unfortunately we can't fit him in. So we've got the Variety Theatre performance on in May, and that's when they're touring. So it's those sort of people that now that, you know, COVID's behind us, that was sort of pushing a bit harder to come through Ashburton. But he has commented on the size of the venue. It's probably at the very, you know, the smallest that he would bring an event to, which is a wee bit frustrating. Like, he's going to Oamaru, who's only 80 seats more than us, but it seems to be that tipping point between viable and not being viable. But yeah, no, it's nice to have him on board, and you know, we'll be probably bending over backwards to make it a good event for him. As far as the venue itself, you know, across all the corporate performance, there has been quite an increase in that 6-month period. Community events again are the highlight. You know, 62% of our bookings come from community events. So that was 88 events in that 6-month period, and those events cover 108 days. So it's quite a chunk of the year's taken up for community performance. The conference and meeting market has been a wee bit slow. Beginning of this year, it has been very quiet, and again, I think I said at the last meeting, there is a lot of competition around town there for meeting spaces. You know, I think there's 2 new ones here now, so you know, that whole you know, space of being able to have a meeting, we used to probably have a bit of an advantage in that we had the technology with sound, lighting, audio, visual. But I think, you know, there is a lot of competition in town now for those spaces. National touring, as I say, it's slowly coming back, but yeah, there's still some of those promoters that we had in the past tending to stay in the main towns, not coming to the regional areas. So it's, I think for them it's just a risk assessment that they make, that they'd rather stay in the cities where it's guaranteed than tour the country and take that risk. And the event centre ones that we procure, again, there's a bit of an issue there. I think the Creative New Zealand funding has been severely cut by the government, which has affected the Arts on Tour program. So they used to provide 12 performances a year that we could purchase, and they were high quality, low cost performances that we used to bring through. It's now been cut down to 6, and problem with some of those is that during our busy period, where, I can't afford to, I'd be silly to give up the bookings that we normally have in that period to bring in those events. It does limit what we can do with the Arts on Tour program, which is a shame because, as I say, it is low cost and it's high quality stuff. So we are actually bringing one of them and putting it in Bering Square next month, just as a trial thing. And I think, if it's a nice night, it should be quite a good, it'll be a nice event for the community. If it's wetter, we'll go back into the auditorium space, but yeah, it's just as a trial for out here. We're giving that a whirl.
Right, do you want to finish your presentation, or are you happy to take questions throughout it, Roger?
Can take questions throughout.
We just have one from Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. The likes of the Dragon Touring one, do you offer, and how many seats can you take out so you can get more patrons and standing up the front? Because, when I think of a seated gig for Dragon and Hello Sailor, there's probably a few want to bust a few moves. So, is that all part of your equation when you're talking to Brent?
So the issue we have is the maximum people we can have in the auditorium space is 500, whether they're seated or standing.
Right.
So it's that overall occupancy rate that we're going to deal with, and more often than not, they'll buy a seat, but then they'll go and stand down the front anyway, mosh pit, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And they are encouraged to do that. But yeah, it's that overall occupancy level that we're.
Okay. Another couple of quick ones, if that's okay. Cost of living issues that we've got at the moment. Are you sort of picking and choosing what you bring, or are you grabbing what you can more at the moment? And are you noticing that bite as far as ticket sales go?
It's interesting that coming through in ticket sales. Like there's still tickets out there at $80, $90. Selling no trouble at all.
Yeah.
And for a night out, in comparison to having to go to an event out of town, it's still a cheap night out. And I think that's probably where we win a wee bit is, it's far cheaper to attend it in town than travel out and see it somewhere else. The Dragon one will be an interesting one. I think they start at 75 and go to 95. But I don't think we'll have any trouble selling it. I think BTA's Variety Theatres, Les Mis is up around that $95 mark, and that's selling very well.
Yeah.
So no, I don't see there being a ticket price issue there at the moment.
Okay, and the last quick one, sorry. Profit margins, bigger shows, is there more money for you guys, or the smaller ones as far as profit margin goes?
Yeah, it's like it's more community event based versus touring events. So touring events are the venue rental's considerably higher for a touring event than it is for a community event.
Right.
I think what balances that out is the fact that 62% of the bookings are community, so it's a bit of a win-win both ways. The booking fee that we get, attract from ticket sales is the other part of the equation that we look at, and the bigger selling events, obviously you make more revenue from that.
Thank you. Lane, you have a question?
Thank you. Roger, just page 2, you're talking about the green room. You tell us that it's dropped after 2022, and the next line tells us you added significant numbers to the green room. So how is it? Is it still below, or is it? It's two different things you're telling me.
Is that what was that in, sorry?
The green room, you told us that dropped from...
Yeah, so what happens with the green room, that gets affected by auditorium bookings. So if you book the auditorium, the green room becomes part of that booking. So while the occupancy can increase, the revenue we attract doesn't always go back to the green room.
Okay.
It's part of that auditorium pricing.
Yeah.
So it is a wee bit confusing as far as that goes. The auditorium space has been boosted mainly by there's a yoga session and the AA driving
See that.
instructor one, book that pretty much weekly. So that's where the boost in that one's come from.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Rob, you, Lynette. Thank you.
Just looking at your conference events, do you think it's the car parking, like especially being an agricultural area, they can't display machinery and that and parts? Do you think that's an issue while it's not being taken up by that sector?
Parking is a huge issue. We have in the past had events there where, you know, we've had to apply for resource consents and all sorts to use car parking for machinery display and that sort of thing. But generally, I think the parking thing, you know, does affect us as far as multi-day conference events and that sort of thing. And also out of town events. Locals probably accept it a bit more. They probably know where they can park, but trying to bring in a national conference of some description, you know, the parking is probably always going to be an issue.
Even funerals, we've actually been told we don't have enough car parking for funerals, which is a good revenue earner, isn't it? And we hope the council will approve the Balmoral car park.
The other question I had was the issue with the Regent Theatre and the car parking. Does that lease run out, or is that one that sticks with the?
It's an
forever?
ongoing.
It's a bit lease with rights of renewal, but it is reviewed, I think, in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
So it's reviewed every 5 years from now on. Okay. So it's the rent is reviewed, but because of the resource consent, it has to be given to the Regent Cinema. So we don't have a choice about that. That was the agreement we did when we sold the building to them. So we can't get out of it, and we've just got to live with it.
Okay.
And we do get a valuation of it and go through the proper process to get.
I know it becomes an issue. It's a shame we can't. Yeah. Do
Well,
something about it.
if the Regent Cinema didn't have it, they wouldn't be able to operate.
That's, yes.
So
And
they've got to have it.
Okay. Okay. Rob, you have a question?
Thank you. Just on the performance report there, operating grants received. 2022, there's a significant amount there, and last year nothing. Just are you actively applying for grants, or what's happening there?
In the opera,
There's notes on the performance report.
Oh, sorry, what page?
It doesn't actually have a page number.
Is it on page 5 or 6 on Stella? Is that what you're looking at, Rob?
Yeah, I'm on Stella.
Yeah, so it'll be page 5. You're looking at the spreadsheet?
Page 12.
Page 12?
It's not on the spreadsheet, it's just on a,
On the accounts? Oh, George, it's on the
the
accounts.
accounts, yes, sorry.
The question, sorry, can you?
It's just on your operating grants received. Are you actively applying for grants, basically?
We are actively.
we are.
Yeah.
Like we certainly apply to the like the Lion Foundation, Mid South Canterbury Trust. They're probably the two main ones. We do have sponsorship or business support from EA Networks and Heartland Bank, which goes into a business account or business support account. But yeah, like definitely there's always grants being applied for. That's basically what operate or how we fund our upgrades and that side of the operation.
Yeah. So nothing received last year in 80 odd.
The grants received last year were mainly that's mainly the council grant.
Yep.
That 300. Have you got an exact figure for the? And we had a couple of other small grants. We have received grants most years from the Lion Foundation to fund plant, some of that we received this year, but we didn't spend it till after the end of the year. So we did get a grant from Lion Foundation, and we did also get a grant from Mid-South Canterbury Trust, and we haven't spent that yet either. So some of that money is sitting in reserves waiting to be spent on the capital expenditure.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
This only includes the grants that we've used for the year. And I think the council one, and I haven't got the exact figure, but it's around 307,000. Yeah.
312,000.
Yeah.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. I see you'd like an upgrade of the sound system, microphones, etc. Roger, whenever I've been to shows there, the sound's been great. Is it sort of staying ahead of the game before this thing, what you're currently using craps itself, or
It is.
is it showing signs of fatigue now?
I think it's one of those aspects of the theatre that if it fell over, we would be in serious trouble. So it's putting a plan in place to, again, stay in front of that happening. And it's, what's in there at the moment certainly still works. The issue I see with it is it was second-hand when it went in there 15 years ago. Things have moved on, and a couple of the promoters, a couple of the sound companies that are being used in for events have said that they won't use that sound system anymore. They'll bring in their own, and again that puts a huge cost on groups like the Variety Theatre and other people in town because of that. So, for example, for Les Mis, they're having to bring in a sound company to do the sound for it, who won't use the sound system. They have said that they want to bring in their own sound equipment, which is a huge task because we're basically got to take our stuff down and put their stuff up. The other issue is trying to stay, again, ahead of the game. It's only like the system that's now most prominent in venues is called a line array system. And yes, what's in there at the moment probably sounds fine, but if you put the line array in there and put it against it, you'd be amazed.
Okay.
So it's a bit like listening to the old valve radio against, a modern day appliance.
Wi-Fi.
So it's a huge difference, and I think as far as trying to stay as a modern venue, and you're competing against quite a few new venues in Christchurch now that have had that system put in. I think it's essential that we stay up with that game and can demonstrate to the promoters that it's still a modern venue, that we're proactive about keeping the technical side of it up to date.
The bigger acts will bring their own stuff, presumably.
Yeah, they do. What you tend to find is the likes of the tribute type acts will still use their equipment. But yeah, a lot of the bigger ones do like to have their own equipment, and again, it's that simple thing of they know what they've got and how to operate it. They're not plugging into a system that they've never seen or used before. And
I think the sound also varies a little bit depending on your seat placement in that facility. I've noticed it myself actually.
yeah, so that's where the line array system comes into its own. It's a very sophisticated system, and I could show you all sorts of graphs that they've done to work out what sort of system that we need to put in there. But yeah, it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think so. Lane, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure who can answer this one, but I'm looking up in Ashburton Event Centre the last half year, and you've got on page 5, you've got priority 1, 2 and 3. You've got it with estimated quotes, and then you've got all the finances behind it. So basically all those items are being funded. I can't work it out.
Which one are you looking at? Sorry, Lane?
On page 5.
Are you talking about the initial report, Lane? The first report on Stella? Ashburton District Council, July, December.
Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
page 5 of the initial
Page 5,
report.
yeah.
It's a spreadsheet
It is.
that's cut and paste into page 5. which starts with priority one, 2023,
Oh, yeah.
24 priority one,
Yeah.
and then
That one
priority
there,
two.
And
and
if I
priority
look
three.
at it,
That one
you've got basically the
You
line.
found it?
What was the question again, eh?
Well, basically, if I look at it, if the way I can see it, you've got the quotes, you've got the funding for most of them. Is that correct? Say, take the first line, 284,538. You've got 500,000, 100,000, 25, 25, and the grand lotto as well of 84,000 round figures. So basically, that has all been sorted. Is that correct?
So
Or is it just what you're going?
that's what we're proposing at the moment. So that's
Ah.
looking at options for funding.
Okay,
So,
okay.
so
I
the
thought-
estimated quotes in that first column
Yes.
for the three priorities, and then we're looking at how we would fund those three priorities.
But you don't have the funding yet.
Not all.
Not all of it. No.
All we've done at the moment is started with South Canterbury Trust, which
Okay,
is the one
okay.
that's highlighted in green there.
I looked at it and said, crike, you did well. You've got it all.
No.
But it's not. Okay, thank you for that.
Roger, how robust are these estimates? Like you've rung up the companies and because we've been struck with inflation and
We
council.
have got quotes, but like most of them are valid for a month, so I think, the way the market is at the moment,
Yep,
an estimate's only an estimate.
thank you. Tony, you have a quick question? Because we've still got the presentation to carry on with.
Correct.
Quick is correct.
I'll speak quickly. Just flowing off Blaine, really. I was going to talk about priorities 1, 2 and 3, but that's been covered. But also, you talk about a request for capital expenditure account contribution annually from the council. You've obviously thought about it. What sort of funding do you think council should be contributing on an annual basis?
Yeah, so I might get George to talk to that. It's
Roger and I met with the chief executive and the mayor to discuss this before we put it in paper.
Okay.
Our thoughts were that the most difficult thing to raise money for would have been the refurbishment costs. And if you look on that summary, that's estimated to be 202,000, which includes painting and decorating, wall coverings and furnishings, and floor coverings. We felt that portion of it was going to be difficult to get grants from other people, and we felt that maybe we could be asking the council to help us with that part of it. In effect, it's depreciation, which we've depreciated this stuff over years, which has never been funded by a council grant, and we accepted that. But it does get to the point where we will have to do something over the next 5 years to get that upgraded. We are talking to people, we have got quotes, and we will be looking for deals in respect of all of that, because we've been pretty well supported from the suppliers and various other people, so there'll be various options for this, but that portion of it we think is quite difficult. 'Tis potentially the theatre fund from Wellington is potentially there as a lender of last resort. There is a theatre, we don't know how that's going to go under the new government, but there is a fund there that you can draw on to do some of this sometime. But they say they're a lender of last resort, so.
And we are meeting with James Meagher to find how we can get into that fund and just have a discussion, open the door to see how we get it. So we didn't have much luck under the previous MP.
I've also seen in various theatres, chair donated by whom at the back of the seats and stuff like that, a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
so that's one thing.
And there is potential, we will be going to the public at large for funding, and
Might get
the
a bit
reason
that
I'm
way.
probably retiring is that I've done one of these, I don't want to do another one.
We've
But
got
we will be going to the theatre, we will be going to the public at large, and we are a registered charity, so people can make a charitable donation, and we believe we will. We put down there money coming from our funds. That will probably, a lot of that could come from donation.
Thank you.
We've got an incredible database of all the original members, and we're actually thinking now we might go back to them and see if we can tap into them and see if there's any more donations come forward.
Or they might have some contacts or.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Do we have any, have you finished your presentation or you have anything else you'd like to discuss?
I think the rest of it's there written in the report for everyone to read anyway, so I don't think there's anything else there.
I have one more question, Roger. Sorry, I've just seen Richard's light go on.
Yeah, it's I just want to be clear. So the grant of 324,000 is the operational grant which you've been getting, or plus a bit of inflation you're looking to get, and then in the presentation on I'll just bring it up on the upgrade or the maintenance or upgrade. So the Ashburn District Council, you're asking for 182 effectively under priority 2, and then also to perhaps put a fixed funding amount into the APATT each year. So is that right? So that's sort of potentially.
That funding would cover that 182,000. So that, like the priority 2, we're sort of thinking over 3, maybe, it's probably still 3 years out before that's needed.
So the District Council one is almost part of the APTT. There's not another amount of money where it's put in.
No.
Right. Just
Yeah.
to check that out. Yep.
But just before we finish, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank George and Noel Johnson, who has retired off the Theatre Trust. It's, what did I work out, 56 years of service. The two of them have contributed. It was a huge job right from the outset, that they've taken on. And, what we have in the community now is, I think you can contribute a lot of it to the work that those two did. Noel was probably instrumental in purchasing the old Currajodian building from the old Regent Theatre, and making sure that remained as a performing arts venue in the early days. And then once the Theatre Trust was formed, George was very much instrumental in basically getting the bricks and mortar and the financial side of it sorted out to establish the building. So it's a lot of experience that's going to be disappearing off the trust, and I take my hat off to the both of them, and especially at a personal level. George has been a huge support for financial side of the operation. I'm no accountant, so it's very nice to have somebody there with that experience. I'm sure Jeannie will be just as efficient as what George was. And thank you, George, and same as Noel. Thank you.
Thank you, George, and also thank you, Noel. But George, we've seen you around here in this short
thank
time.
you. It's been a pleasure to be involved with it for 30 years now. I think just about we've been involved with, and particularly Noel and I. It's interesting that we bought the old theatre off a receiver because they couldn't make a picture theatre work. We decided that the first project was to build another picture theatre for Ashburton, that was the first project. We bought more land. We sold the picture theatre off eventually to build the main theatre. So it's quite a drawn out affair. Hopefully over the next 6 months I might write a bit of a summary
It would
about
be very interesting for the museum to have that information.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful credit to you and to all involved. So congratulations, but I'll give it to the Mayor to have the last word.
Yeah, I'd also just like to reiterate what you've said on behalf of the community, Roger. The work George and Noel have done over 26 years and 30 years, and I've been on the committee with them and I've seen it firsthand what they do, and it is amazing. The skills and talents they've had, very dedicated and passionate, and all the fundraising they've done and the thoughts on how to get it. So well done. And there's other ways they can also be thanked as well, which you'll probably look at in the future. But just one thing about the fund you're thinking of, like the air conditioning units, they're 15 years old, haven't been replaced yet, still working well, and there's a but.
There's the big but. Like there has been replacements over the period to individual parts of it, but the main heating system, if that fell over again.
And you wouldn't have the funds to replace it because you haven't been, no one's been funding that depreciation, which has been alluded to over all the time I've been on council. It's been alluded to, and council is aware of it, but we still have not funded it. Yeah, so we'll keep that in mind.
That's a good reminder.
In the long-term plan process. Thanks.
Thank you very much for coming in, and we'll just give a round of applause for your retiring trustees. And a great thanks for your contribution.
Thank you.
And now we'll break for, turn my light off prematurely, we'll break for morning tea. And we'll come back, please, in, we push it out, 15 minutes. That'll be 5 to 11. Thank you. Clifford, General Manager, Leslie Symington, the Safe Communities Coordinator, and Don McLeod, Safe and Mid Canterbury Chair, to the room. And just to remind you, please, that we are live streaming this, although we're not at the moment. We are now live streaming. We've all had a chance to look at your presentation. Thank you. Would you like to add to the presentation or introduce the team if you need to, if I've missed something out? Kevin, please.
That one. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to come along and present our last 6 months' work. And hello to councillors and chair, mayor, staff. I don't know if we've got any press. Oh yes, press gallery. What I'll do is I'll just go through our last 6 months' work for Safe Mid Canterbury, and then just talk briefly to our business case, which we've presented, and I'm sure everybody's read, and take any questions, and then Leslie will just talk through what's happening in the safe communities and what the plan is for the future, and take any questions, and I'm sure Don will want to say something at the end at some point, and we'll just go from there. Please ask any questions as I go if anything's
Thank you, Kevin.
unclear. So it's been a very busy 6 months for our organisation. One of the big things and most notable was shifting buildings, and so that was a big thing for us. We had significantly outgrown our current space within the community to the point where we had to split staff across a couple of different sites. So because it was far too cramped within our building, and that wasn't really a good way to operate. It was very fortunate that the building next to Community House at 255 Moore Street became available. So that was purchased by Community House, the trust, and but the building had originally only housed a small number of staff, with the rear of the building, around 50% of it, being warehousing space. So as such, we embarked on, for us, quite a sizable project, which we probably invested around 300,000 of our money in, completely retrofitting the building to accommodate our staff. It is now can accommodate upward of 40 staff, so it's quite good. The work and the subsequent shift involved a lot of work on my part, and did create quite a bit of disruption. I'm sure council will understand what it means to move to a new building, the disruption for staff. However, it's been a very worthwhile exercise, as we now have a great building to work from, which should accommodate our future needs for quite some time. Another change for our organisation has been the appointment of a 2IC person. We've sort of done this within current staffing levels, as we had a range of team leaders, and we've rejigged it a bit, slightly restructured. As our organisation has grown, our board became quite concerned that too much knowledge of our operations sat with one person. And so we looked at that slight restructure to add the position of 2IC. Over the last 6 months, we filled that position with a new staff member. Her name's Lee Lawless. She was going to pop along today so I could introduce her, but she's flat out with work. We have quite a few things happening. So, and part of her role was learning about the oversight of the organisation, our funding, our contracts, budgets, expenditure, and aspects such as that. And she's also become involved in some of the rewrite of our policy work and HR systems. This should leave our organisation in quite a good position should the GM get hit by a bus. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, we'll be right.
Not allowed to.
Yeah, okay. We have also added additional staffing to our organisation. So we were approached by Senior Citizens, which is a small trust in Ashburton, to see if we could support them as they moved forward. They were struggling a little bit. And as such, we've formed a relationship with them, and now we oversee their work, employ their staff person, and they deliver their service out of our new offices. So that's been an additional staff person for us. The new person, Jackie Patterson, is the new coordinator of that. And that's been a great support to Senior Citizens, who's, I think the board had probably needs to go through a period of building some capacity, and it was good to be able to keep that service going. It does provide a service to quite a number of aged people who have mobility issues and unable to leave their homes to come out to get service provision, so it's quite good. Prior to Christmas, we were also approached by a group known as Food Bank Aotearoa. This was a sizable organisation across Canterbury that rescued food from supermarkets, greengrocers and wholesalers. The organisation had a number of financial issues across their Christchurch area, and so they were looking to shut down and laying staff off before Christmas. As part of their operation, there was a Mid and South Canterbury team that worked as somewhat an autonomous unit, and we were asked if we could pick this up. Over the past year, this unit had rescued over 100 tonne of food across the Mid and South Canterbury areas and distributed that through to food banks community organisations. 39 tonne of that food came from the Ashburton district and went back to individuals, families and elderly people across the district. So quite a significant amount. This food has a conservative value of, or estimated value of, $10 per kg. We think it's closer to 12, but we base it on 10 for our figures. So that's around $400,000 worth of food in the last year that was distributed locally. So we know that this is an extremely valuable service, not only providing food to a large number of people, but also that it seems quite wrong for food to go in the landfill when people are struggling. As such, we agreed to pick up the Mid and South Canterbury side of the operation. This has involved the employment of 4 staff, which interestingly has now taken the total number of staff employed by Safe Mid Canterbury to 40. The service had no money when it came to us. It had 4 people, a 20-year-old van, but it had relationships and reputation, and it had been delivering a lot of food to people. So we quickly needed to get some money coming in to cover wages from day one. So we're very pleased that a private businessman who was approached provided $30,000 to keep the doors open. And so that was fantastic. In short order, we have managed to raise another $130,000 for operational costs and an additional $70,000 to replace the ageing van. So we're just in the process now of purchase. Well, we've ordered a van. It takes a bit of time because it has to be fully refrigerated and kitted out. So as such, we're now confident that we'll be able to move forward with some certainty around funding, ensuring this valuable service continues to do needed work across the Ashburton district, and also through our work able to support this happening in the Timaru and South Canterbury area. The previous 2 examples do show the worth of having a locally run and governed organisation with the flexibility and capacity to quickly respond to need in our district. As council will know, Safe Mid Canterbury purchased a property in 2022 to use as social housing for refugees coming to our community. The staff and board felt investing in social housing is an area we should develop over the coming years. As such, we have again been able to secure funding to purchase a second house to add to our social housing stock. This will be utilised for refugee housing. As we build capital on the properties we have, it will assist us to more quickly move to invest in more social housing in the community over the coming years and meet some of the significant need for short to medium term housing for families in our district. Perhaps we felt that we weren't already busy enough in the last 6 months, so we embarked on putting an entirely new payroll and HR system in place in our organisation as well. This is called Employment Hero. So this is a total payroll and HR interface that does away with paper and instead provides a portal for all new and existing staff to log into, to sign documents, update details and etc., and move to a fully app-based system for payroll, timesheets, leave, etc. So we're still embedding this system, but it has removed a significant amount of paper processing and duplication within our organisation. So that's quite good. The rest of our work has been delivering our business as usual activities where we've remained steadily busy. We appear to have moved past some of the significant or more significant difficulties we had that COVID threw up for us. However, over the last 6 months, however, we still have had a number of staff with COVID, and so as a busy organisation, it becomes quite difficult when people are off for a week. So, but it's just an aspect of our organisation that we'll now have to manage and carry on with. From a financial perspective, things are ticking along nicely. We have again been able to increase the return on investment for council. In the previous year, as of 31 December 22, Safe Mid Canterbury's income was around 1.5 million, with council contributing at 125,000. For 2023, our income for the first 6 months has just tipped over 2 million, council's investment being 128,000. So we have, year on year, we seem to have increased council's return each time. So we feel that council's investment allows us to give us that base to be strong, and then to capitalise on that and bring in additional funding. And all of this funding comes from outside of the district, from Wellington. We bring it back into the district and we employ staff with that money, so the money circulates in our economy as well. So not only do we see ourselves as an organisation that is adding to the social good of our community, I think economically we're also putting money back into the community through advocating to have that money come to our district instead of other places. So, also presented in our report is the number of people and families we've worked with. Over the last 6 months, we've been involved with and touched the lives of around 1,250 people across the district. We have a very significant footprint as an organisation and carry out a significant amount of work within the district, supporting a wide cross-section of the community, strengthening and supporting our district and its citizens. Moving forward, you will have all read our business plan, I'm sure, so I'm not going to pull some specifics out of it. We haven't identified any additional new work over the coming 3 years, so we're proposing to continue very much delivering business as usual in our projects. Like everyone, we're planning for slightly leaner times as we move forward. As such, we see the next 3 years as a time to consolidate and looking for areas where we can be more efficient over our spending. This is slightly difficult, given that most of our costs are actually staff, and we do require the level of staffing we have to meet the contracts and the services we need to meet. But there's always little efficiencies we can find here and there. Obviously, over the next 3 years, there will be changes with the new government that will have new priorities. We don't expect, and there's certainly no word of any significant changes in the sorts of services we're contracted to deliver. However, I am sure that there will be new opportunities that present themselves. Previously, under a national government, there were a number of new opportunities that presented themselves that we capitalised on, that we still deliver today, and I expect there to be more in the future. Some of the stronger ones that came under the last national government were around employment for young people and those sorts of projects. So hopefully there'll be some things in the pipeline in the next few years that we can capitalise on. You can be sure that Safer Mid Canterbury will be the community's strongest advocate to ensure that the Ashburton district doesn't miss out on any new opportunities that are going nationally, and ensure that we get that funding coming into our district to support our families and our young people and our elderly. Thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss our 6 months, and I suppose any questions on the work we're doing, I'm sure there'll be some, and any questions on what we've put in our business plan. If you could just stick to the operational side of Safer Mid Canterbury, because then Leslie will talk about hers, and she's got stuff in the business plan as well.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for a very informative presentation, and congratulations on the work that you do on behalf of our community. I think Lynette has a question.
I just had a question. You've got 550 odd people in the system. How many years do they stay in the system? Have you got families coming in and going out the other end, or is there quite a number of them that stay with you for years? Or
It's quite complex, because every single service we do has a different mandate for how long we work with the people. But to give you an example, a lot of our family services, it's a 3-month intervention. So, and same with our youth services. So a person or a young person or a family might come in, and we will write a personal plan for them, and there will be goals in that plan, and then we will support them to meet those goals. And the idea is that they come out the other end in 3 months stronger, with some tools in their closet that they can are now able to support themselves. We have some services, such as we have a service called Transition, where we support young people who have been in the care of the state, and we work with them from 15 through to 21. So they will stay on our books over that time, because we're in essence that support for people who don't have parental support. We have other services. We have a service called Community Connector, not to be mistaken with the van, but that's what the government calls the service, and that is for vulnerable people to be referred who are struggling but don't meet the needs for work and income support, but are still struggling, generally working people who have some difficulties. And we could work with them for a week or two just to help them get over an obstacle or get them referred to the right place, or we might work with them for a few months. So it's sort of it's a real mixture. And then through to some of our services where people might just come in and need some support and some direction, some advocacy, and they could be gone in a week. So it's a real mixture.
Okay, there's no real hardcore that
No,
will never leave.
no.
Yeah.
So
You're
to be honest, apart from our transition service where we're contracted to stay with people for multiple years, most would be 3 to 6 months is the maximum end of most of our service provision.
Thank you. Tony, you have a question before we move on to Leslie's presentation?
Like you referenced opportunities last time when there was a change of government with National. I suppose it's more of a comment really. They're talking about localism, so their thing maybe is to force things back to the local communities to do stuff. So there could be opportunities ahead if they start putting things out the regions, you could say, to do rather than being centralised from Wellington.
It will certainly, and I think we're lucky to have a very strong yet nimble organisation that can capitalise on those things. And I think picking up the Food Rescue Trust is an example of how if there's an opportunity available, we can make it work for our district quickly. And,
Neil, do you have a question for Kira?
Yep. You're requesting 275 next year, the next budget. What's your grant this year? Is it 257?
grant this year. So I don't have the exact figure this year, but okay, it'll be twice 128,000, which was the 6 months.
275.
Yeah, and so what it is what we're actually asking for is a 4% increase on what we had this year, which Tony said to put in a 4% increase, so that's what we did. And then you'll recall that when we presented last time for Safe Communities, we had excellent ACC funding was for a 5-year period, and that had come to an end. So we have asked for an additional. So this represents 4% increase on funding and an additional $7,500 to ensure the longevity of Safe Communities. So we've built that in.
Yep. Have you had any other central government cuts you know of?
No. In all our conversations we have one service which is our family violence education and awareness work, which is a part-time coordinator, which there have been a cut signalled, but that was signalled under the old government. And so that's been in the paper. We've been in the paper with James Mega, who's advocating for us to see what's happening and see if we can keep it. That was the old government was getting rid of 37 local coordinators of family violence around the country and centralising that into what they call regional system leads sitting within MSD, which seemed to be the opposite of what the government was saying they were going to do and divesting that work back to communities. So we've been working with James Meg around that. That's the only thing which has been on the cards for 12 months, talking about that under the old government. And talking with James Meager, he said that really their intention is not to reduce any localised services. In fact, more might be devolved. Who knows? So, it's more, their work to reduce spending seems to be more in that upper echelon within government. So.
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to? Rob?
Yeah, thank you. You're saying that your biggest expense is wages, etc., and you indicated 40 staff. Does that those 40 staff, are some of those volunteers or?
No, we have around 70 volunteers on top of the 40 staff, regular volunteers who volunteer weekly. So there's obviously a very small cost, obviously a few cups of teas and things, and a bit of mileage for them. But yeah.
I don't know if I really should ask this or not, but how many people are in wages excess 100,000?
I'm trying to think. Well, I could say probably only one.
That was going to be my answer, but it was.
You can probably guess who that is.
That's the chairman of the board.
And thoroughly deserved and warranted.
So every year we get our salaries surveyed through Strategic Pay, which is, I understand, the same organisation that councils use to benchmark salaries, and they do a large non-profit survey of around 40,000 jobs. We put into that each year as part of the survey, and consistently for what they consider to be skill level qualifications and level of work, we sit 15 to 17% behind government services for the same position. So it's, they are leaner organisations. That may not be the right thing to happen. We predominantly employ women, which means we're sort of part of ensuring that women get paid less. So so it's not high.
Thank you very much. One last question from Phil. We do have to move on. Phil.
Thanks, just a quick one. Just to the food rescue that you do, that's different to TK Reuben Paul's Pataka Kai, isn't it? Or is
Yes.
that's not the same? And are you concerned that there's that group doing that and you guys doing that, and maybe there could be a coming together and doing things better overall? I guess that's something that you're looking at throughout.
This has happened quite quickly. This was an established service. It is the only service that actually rescues food from supermarkets and wholesalers, greengrocers, and in Timaru they've built it up towards abattoirs and those sorts of things as well. So there's opportunity for growth here. From my knowledge, there is no other service doing this specific work where they rescue and redistribute food. It's quite a big operation. They have to go around. They have relationships with all of the providers. They have storage, freezers, fridges, cool store, and then they repackage and distribute the food back to food banks and organisations. So.
No, I think it's brilliant. I was just wondering if there was.
There's probably an opportunity in the future for. I mean, we always like to work in partnership, but that's what was established and was about to fall over. So.
Yeah, at the moment it's a unique offering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Last question for Kevin.
Very, very quickly, that food rescue service provides food to the marae, is that correct? And then I think that may be redistributed by TK through his Pataka Kai.
It's a different thing.
The rescue service distributes food to a number of providers in the community.
Just pop your light on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So so there are a lot of food distributors, but nobody who does this particular rescue of food, and the food service has been providing food to the marae, both Hakatiri and Arawhenua. So it's a big part of their business. So a lot of that food goes there and then gets redistributed through their projects. So
Thank you very much,
They
Kevin.
complement each other, I suppose.
Put your light on, Phil, if you want to say anything. I'll assume you don't because there's no light on. Thank you very much, Kevin. Leslie, I'm looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. Oh, stretch. So I won't be long because I'm only a little tiny program as part of Safer Mid Canterbury, but it is lovely to have this opportunity to, take the limelight and tell you what we're doing. So while there's only me here today, I did a quick count up this morning, and when I look at all the different collaborations we've got under the Safe Communities umbrella, there's something like 30 to 40 local agencies working together on different programs of interest to them, whether it's falls prevention or other safety initiatives. So it's really great for how this community is very willing to work together, from my experience, and I've worked in a number of different communities that weren't so willing to work together. Thanks very much to Deputy Mayor Liz McMillan. She's the chair. She's also a great sleeves rolled up participant when required, so she's great to work with. Very quickly looking at the 6 months, July to December, we had some nice achievements and some key highlights. The Connector Community Transport Service doubled its numbers from the same period of the previous year. And as of the 31st of January, since the program began, we've taken 392 trips from people across the district wanting to come into Ashburton to do business or whatever they choose to do. When we get to 500, we're going to have a massive celebration with a cake And because for a little service like that run by volunteers with only one wee vehicle, it's quite a significant contributor to social isolation for people who can't get out and about. Our Safety in the Home program, looking at hazards for children, there's about 400 parents and older children have gone through those sessions over the last 6 months and know more about how to keep hazards away from small children in the home. Our ski tour that we did on one day with Mount Hutt staff, we had about 500 kids from 4 schools heard those messages, and we were really pleased to get afterwards a video from Dr. Kate, who's the medical person up on the mountain, quizzing all the kids from the 4 schools, what do you know about ski safety? And they knew all the messages ahead of them coming up to the mountain because of that little tour. So they're really keen to do that again and keep that going. She said it makes her job so much easier to have those children arrive knowing about ski safety in their heads, and less job for the meat wagon, hopefully. We trialled some Ageing Well sessions in October in the old library, and were absolutely, literally bowled over nearly by the number of older people who came through. And that was a big collaboration with EA Networks Centre, ACADS, Age Concern, Sport Canterbury, the Connector. So we had all these things happening in the old library, and we want to do more of those sessions because they were very well patronised. We were literally just about knocked over by the number of people coming in. So we're really excited about this new building and what we can do, working with the library staff and using some of those different spaces. We're looking at one at the moment on scams, on doing like an after work talk on scams. And so that's our first foray into working in the new library. And of course we began the work on the bike skills park, so that's quite exciting. I should have brought the plans with me. I didn't bring the plans, but we've got an initial concept now. We're now taking a halt, so we're going to do a QS on it to make sure that our lofty ideas aren't going to cost more than what we actually want to budget for the end result. So that's something that is happening at the moment. And they were the key things for the 6 months that we did looking backwards. Looking forward, if you look at the business plan that Kevin put together, the Safe Communities Plan is an appendix at the back of that rather than me creating a separate document. And I've also circulated a one-pager on the age-friendly national program for councillors to have a look at. So what are we going to be doing over the next 3 years? All of the same stuff that we're already doing, and we've got some new things that we're quite excited about as well. One thing we've been working on quite a bit to support council is the research on the viability and need for a public transport service for the township. And my role has been to connect the researchers up with community agencies and create a workshop where they came along and talked about what was happening and advise on things like where the venues should be for collection boxes, etc. So we're pushing at the moment, those surveys close end of next week. We're pushing probably around 400 responses from the community through those surveys, either online or paper surveys, and a huge amount of feedback from agencies around transport issues for their clients. So that's going to be really interesting to see that research report from those independent researchers, which will be presented to the council. There's a small steering group which Councillor Cameron and Councillor McMillan are on, plus council management, ECAN staff, myself. So there's a small group. We will get the privilege of looking at that quickly first, and then it will be presented to council for council to deliberate what you want to do with that feedback and that research. So that's been a really interesting one to be involved with. Our falls prevention group are meeting next week. We want to do something called April Falls for the month of April. We're not sure how big or small it's going to be yet. It depends on how much the agencies are able to contribute. It might be a week, hopefully at least a week. It won't be a month at this stage, but hopefully a week. And then we also want to focus in every October as well. So Ageing Well in October, which is a lot broader than falls prevention in April, where we're promoting all those amazing strength and balance classes around the district and some of the other things that are happening. a biggie for the program is for the next year is the looking at creating an age-friendly Ashburton strategy. So this would see us working with council to prepare a strategy and an action plan looking at how friendly, a bit like welcoming communities, how friendly is our community for older people, you know, how do older people fit in and contribute and feel valued in our community? What do we do really well? And we do a lot of things really well here, but also where are our gaps where we could improve, where people are saying as an older person, this is not okay for us. And we don't know any of that yet because we haven't done any consultation, but that is quite an exciting program. So I think there's something like 33, 34 districts around New Zealand already have these plans, and there are some really interesting projects that have come out of it that we can pinch. Some really nice information booklets for older people could be a lovely start for that group to work on, and something like the Helping Hands, but a Helping Hands for older people could be a good project to get that group going as a part of the action plan, and other things that could come up from the feedback that we get from people. We're also looking at doing a community roadshow around local communities on safety. So the Safety Roadshow comes to town. It has a whole variety of topics. It could be water safety, it could be digital safety, it could be the dangers of vaping for children, it could be a whole range of things that are of interest to local communities, to families and parents. But we are moving away from the concept of having a centralised large presence at the AMP show to taking it out to local communities, because we think it'll have better reach and better impact. So we'll arrive in Rakaia, we'll hire the community hall, and the roadshow will be in town, and it will have each month or every second month a whole lot of topics. There'll be, you know, barbecue, there'll be things for the kids to do while mum and dad and grandparents hear about whatever the topic is that is on the agenda for that month. And the home safety, the Safety in the Home program, we want to develop a partnership with a local hardware retailer, because it's all easy to say to people, you must make your home safe, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. They don't know where to get locks for cupboards. They don't know what sort of hooks they should have for their curtains, you know, to make them keep those blind cords away from wee toddlers, for instance. So we're looking at developing that partnership, which I think will really add some more value to that Safety in the Home program. So there's some of the highlights. I won't go on anymore. We're just a wee program, but I think we're doing some quite innovative and collaborative work. So it's really good to have the council support. And yeah, new things popping up all the time. Being a local collaboration, as Kevin says about SAFER, it's also really easy to be responsive. So as things come to the table, like for instance, vaping keeps coming to our table every time we have a meeting, that the health people are talking about vaping. So, you know, what can we do in partnership with health to bring those messages to parents in our communities about how safe or not safe vaping is. So, yeah. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Any questions? I'd just like to say, Leslie, I've just read your business plan the other day, and I'm very impressed with what you've got going forward. And I'm looking forward, as you say, to the public transport survey and what that yields, and especially to our older persons, you know, how we're going to have an older person strategy in the district. I think will be very, very useful and beneficial to help address some issues. Councillor Lovett, you have a question.
I was just going to ask, with the older person's strategy, you haven't been in contact with a lot of the retirement villages and service clubs or any of those as yet, because is it another big organisation going to be set up with accreditation and a wage and everything like that going in the future, or is it just a kind of a one-off and things put in place?
So the initial work is to create a strategy. So that would be around, we haven't started any of this work yet, this is brand new on the table, is to get a group of key agencies together as an advisory group who will help to oversee preparing a strategy. The strategy work, the hard slog, will be done by me in my role as Safe Communities person. We'll create an action plan, and then we'll sit back and think from there what needs to be done. What are we doing really, really well that we can really celebrate in our community? What are the areas where something needs to be done? And it could be anything, and it won't necessarily be needing funding, it might be taking an advocacy role or talking to another agency with that responsibility for that particular service or lack of service. So we just don't know until we've created a plan.
Thank you. Liz, would you like
Not,
to
not really a question, but, and I know it was written in here somewhere, but Leslie only works 20 hours a week and she manages to pump out everything we need from her. So I'd just like to say thank you. And I think the age strategy is something that I know we talked about around the council table last term, and I think that will be a good addition. But yeah, thanks Leslie for all that you do.
And I'd just like to reiterate that, Leslie, you pump out a tremendous amount of very relevant, very pertinent work to our community, and I think, we'll appreciate it. Any more questions for Leslie, or shall we hand it back to Kevin to introduce Don for a few words? Or? No?
Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
Chair. A couple of quick comments, if I may. Firstly, can I congratulate Council and staff on this building. I've been reflecting a little bit on a long time ago when I was on the council, and two things occurred to me. One is this is a credit to everybody involved and an asset to the community. The second is, looking around the tables, I recall, Neil's probably the only one here who can remember this, but I can recall when I joined the council, I was given a not very thinly veiled message to wear a collar and tie. And I'm pleased to see that that those days are past. So new building and new approaches, well done. Secondly, just to say that in relation to the staff of Safer Ashburton in various ways, we didn't need a 2IC only because all of the knowledge was residing in one pair of hands. We needed a 2IC also because a lot of the work was residing in one pair of hands. And if you have a look at our history, you'll know that 30 years ago we started with one full-time staff member and a couple of volunteers. As you know, now we've got 40. So it's no longer possible for Kevin to manage this organisation on his own, although it is a pretty fair imitation of it. So part of the reason for appointing a 2IC was to spread some workload because we are growing bigger, and in spite of the fact that we don't go seeking business and we're not out to make a profit, things do seem to come our way, like the food rescue process, and so Safer Ashburton has expanded in spite of our best efforts not to. Seriously though, I think the organisation is a credit to the General Manager, to the staff he runs and the way he runs them, and I'm very pleased and proud to be associated with the work they do. Thank you again for having us here. We enjoy a huge amount of cooperation and liaison with Council in various ways. That's what makes it all tick. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions for the team? Oh, Rob.
Thank you. When I hear the word Safer Mid Canterbury, it means a safer Mid Canterbury, and from what I've gathered, you've sort of drawn the line at the word vape. Obviously, there's a lot worse things that people put in their systems around the area, and a lot worse participation or a gang footing in Ashburton. Do you not cross the line into that?
So a large number of our services are, we work with offenders. So we have contracts for youth offending. So we work with, well, we are the provider for the Ashburton District for all youth offenders. And so our job is to steer them away from that path so they don't become adult offenders. We do a lot of work in the courts where we work with offenders and victims to try and steer them away from that path. Often, a lot of our services are services that are referred to once somebody is charged with an offence and it comes to us. We also work very closely in partnership with other providers around family violence, which is probably one of our most significant offences that actually occur in this district. And we work closely with ACADS as well in regards to alcohol and drug work, and we're part of some of the promotional work around that. We have a lot of clients who have alcohol and drug issues, and so getting them the support so they don't keep repeating the kind of offending. So we probably have services and touch the lives of people with all of those issues, and are working quite hard to try and put them on a positive pathway, sort of thing. So
Probably
vaping is just one thing that keeps popping up as a new issue, but some of those other ones we've been working on for quite a long time.
Just listening to your presentation this morning, you just hadn't crossed the line into that, and you probably need to promote that a bit more of the work you're doing. Because
Certainly, probably, yes, yeah. So we certainly do work with a lot of people in that area.
Oh, thank you very much. I think that draws the meeting to a close today. Thank you, guys, for coming in and presenting to us all your work you've done over the previous 6 months, and look forward to hearing what you've done in the next 6 months. You certainly should all be congratulated, so thank you very much. Thank you. And I'd like to close the meeting for this morning. Thank you.